Continuing my revision of my American history notes and talking about the foundations of religious liberty in America, let's continue with what I said last time. Thomas Duncan had migrated to Cold Springs, Bucks County, Pennsylvania in 1684 and started a church there. In 1686, Elias Keach visited him and their work paved the way for a revival at Pennapeck. Believers from Wales, Ireland, and England and converts from Pennsylvania formed the churches in southeastern Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia area, from which Clarence Larkin would emerge in the late 19th century and early 20th. The Philadelphia Association sprang from these independent churches, and the Philadelphia Confession of Faith was adopted in 1742 based on the London Confession of Faith of 1689. The purpose of this association was to lay the groundwork for unity of doctrine among independent local churches. Those people that adhered to this confession became known as, quote, regular Baptists. Cotton Mather wrote his pro-standing order work Magnalia Christi Americana in 1702. Authors named Mitchell, Johnson, Hutchinson, and Morton also wrote histories of New England, glowing with reports about the pedobaptist or infant baptizers, the Puritans, and the Standing Order, but completely ignored the dissenters. In 1732, Dr. Daniel Neal wrote his famous, at the time, History of the Puritans, which was harsh on Anabaptist groups. It became the standard history in England, while Mather's was in America regarding the state of Christianity. The next event in American history that had a profound effect on the future of religious liberty was called the Great Awakening. An important figure in this movement was Jonathan Edwards, the son of preacher Timothy Edwards and Esther Pierpont. He pastored Stoddard's Church in Northampton and began the task of correcting the wrongs of his grandfather and the Saybrook platform. He was not a dissenter, a separatist, or a Baptist. He was ordained in the Standing Order Church and is one of the four key people of the Great Awakening. His influence on other Protestant denominations in America is immense, spreading the desire for revival all through the American population. Since 1704 at least, the sacrament, quote-unquote, of baptism was viewed as the means by which one was converted to Christianity, although this concept goes back to over 1,000 years before that in the state church that the Roman Emperor Constantine created, and even before in the writings of some of the early church leaders called, quote, fathers by the Catholic Church. The dulling effect of this idea on churches in America was phenomenal, and churches began to die. Between 1718 and 1727, the churches of New England of the established Standing Order were degenerating into formality and lacking completely in spiritual commitment. Preachers commented on how depraved people, nominal Christians by baptism, were becoming. Darkness was descending on the spiritual consciousness of colonial America that was unimaginable. Immorality, drunkenness, and a disregard for God's book and his standards were taking over the common man. Preaching was dry and dull, and often preached by men who were unsaved themselves and had no personal knowledge of or commitment to Christ. There was no emphasis on a personal experience with a risen Savior, and such a view was held in disdain by those preachers of the halfway covenant who viewed salvation as a communal experience based on the individual submitting to the church's sacramental rituals, regardless of his inner state of faith or lack thereof. Something was about to change that, and we're going to talk about that something next. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll click like and subscribe or follow, and feel free to make comments if you disagree. Just provide your citations.